Hello students, today we will be going over algebraic properties. This is page 76 in your yellow packet. Now, there are four main properties for solving equations. There's the addition property of equality, which I call ADPO. So get used to saying that, ADPO, and it's spelled A-D-D-P-O-E, like Edgar Allan Poe, property of equality. Okay, our objective today, I can justify steps to solving an equation using the algebraic properties. Now, so if we add the same number to both sides of an equation, that is called the addition property of equality. So when we solve equations, we get each steps that justify each step. We have these properties. So there's the subtraction property of equality, multiplication property of equality, division property of equality. That just means we're subtracting, multiplying, or dividing the same number on both sides of the equation. There's also the distributive property, which I will go over when we have that. It has to do with parentheses. And then substitution, which is also known as when you simplify something. And we will go over that as well. So when we start our first where it says equation and steps, we're going to circle the change in each equation. In the second equation, identify the property demonstrated. Okay, so this shows m plus minus 7 plus 7 equals 13 plus 7. So what did we do to both sides of the equation? If you draw a line down the equal sign, we added 7 to each side. However, we also need to make sure we list what's given. That will always be what we start off with on any problem that we come across. So what did we do again? We added something to both sides, so it's addition property of equality. Now, go on to number 2, where we have this equation, and again, we always put given. Now that's 5/3 x equals 5/18. Oh, I forgot to circle what was different here. We added 7 to both sides, okay? Over here, this is 5/3 times x, so we're actually going to multiply by the inverse. So if we're multiplying by the inverse, what do you think we call that? Multiple. So it's multiplicative property of equality. Okay, next, right here, what do we write first? Correct, it's given. Next, to solve this problem, we're going to go ahead and divide by 2 on both sides. Okay, so what do we just do? Divipo, that's what I call that. Division property of equality. And there you have that. Okay. Let's go on to the next page, page 77. Okay, circle the change in both equations. Identify the property demonstrated. Okay, so here's our equation. What do we write first? Given. Always the first thing is given. That's what we're given, is an equation. Okay, next. Look what changed. It went from 3x plus 2x to 5x. And what do we call that? We simplify, but the actual property name is substitution. Okay, and we also substituted 7 plus 4 for 11. So when we're simplifying, we use the substitution property. Okay. I'm going to have you skip number 8 and have you do number 9 on your own. We can pause the video and I can make sure you can do number 9. We're going on to number 10 here. And again, what's the property or reason? First thing, we're given that. Next, we see that it went 2 times x plus 2 times 7. What property is that? Correct, that's the distributive property. We distributed the 2 through the parentheses, and now the parentheses are no more. Now, they have a fancier term for that, distributive property of multiplication over addition. You just need to remember it's the distributive property, okay? Now, if I wanted to continue this, it would be 2x plus 14 equals 15. And then, what would we use to go from here to here? We actually substituted 2 times 7 for 14. And we went to that. And these are basically the same. If we wanted to circle that, we could. But then again, I would be using the substitution properly. Proper. Substitution. There we go. Okay. In the next video, we'll be going over the symmetric and reflexive property. Actually, those are pretty easy. When it says the symmetric property of equality, if A equals B, then B equals A. So it's basically just looking at the mirror and say, oh, I reflect A equals B, B equals A. So it's just reflecting. The reflexive property of equality says A equals A. So if it's exactly the same, we say it's the reflexive property of equality. If it's different, like A equals B, then B equals A, it's the symmetric property of equality. Okay? So 6 equals 6, what would that be? Okay, you should all be following along with me on page 77. Okay, 6 equals 6, that's going to be exactly the same. So it's reflexive property of equality. Okay, number 12, if 5 equals y, then y equals 5. It's the symmetric property because that's like A equals B, then B equals A. And you can finish the rest of these. You can get this, students. You rock.